everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from July 7th, 2023. I'm recording this on January 4th, 2024. As always, I give you those dates so you know when this information is actually most relevant because the market is always moving and changing. Also, as always, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. Each week they put out a list of 10 books that are trending in the market, that are moving, that have a lot of sales, that are jumping in value. And we look and see how those books are doing later, because they're doing that because the books, what factors made them jump, whether it be option news or a movie or a trailer or just a hot cover that just released or a hot new indie or whatever the factor was. What made them hot back then and how have they performed in the market since? So we make better decisions about what books we chase and what books we're patient on. This week we got 18 books to talk about, so let's dig in and see what we can learn. First up, we got Barbie #1 on the list for the second week in a row. Kind of opposite list, so it really wasn't a huge change in price from what we talked about last week. 9.8, it hit 300. That was really what prompted it. Raw copies were going for $10 is all. So the raw copies hadn't moved nearly as much as the 9.8 had. Now it's a $5 to $10 book on the raw side, so it's, it'll all be back there. But 9.8s are now 120 to 150, so it's a dumpster fire for that 9.8. If you jumped in just before the movie came out and paid big money for a 9.8, yeah, that has not paid off since. Next, we're going to start moving into covers. Our first cover this week is Barnstormers #1, the Jenny Frison 1 in 25. And I'll freely admit here, I thought this was this was supposed to be Jennifer Connelly from The Rocketeer on this cover, because I thought this was some sort of Rocketeer book because it looked like her, and it's not, but it's a different comic altogether. But I don't know, there was something about this cover that reminded me of that character from that movie. Raw copies back then for this 125 were going for 40 to 50, which is just barely getting the double, which usually means it ends up right around ratio, maybe slightly above. That's what happened here. It's now a $30 to $35 book. 9.8 will cost you $170, although not a lot of sales there. But yeah, still a down, and then I'll be back. Borderline trap on this one, even though it's a gorgeous cover, at least to me. I'm a big Frison fan. So next we have, and if you're wondering why you don't see JP's predictions, this was one of those weeks where I did not do a cash or trash, so I didn't have predictions for these books this week. Next we have Darkwing Duck #6, the Carlo Loro 1 in 20, the Akira Homage cover. This is the Virgin. Back then it was going for 35 to 75, so pretty wide range back then. Low end though, not a great sign, but sales were getting above triple ratio of at least a few of them. But yeah, this turned into a dumpster fire. It's now an $18 to $20 book. Not a ton of sales. Most of the asking prices are higher, but it's not going for that. This is definitely a book that is backed up. It is a cool homage, but not holding the value of when it first came out. Next, we have My Little Pony #14, the Justa Sutta 1 in 10. That 1 in 10 was going for $20 to $40 back then. Now the only sale was a $15 sale. So not a lot of interest in it, or definitely turned into a trap on this one. So yeah, so far we've gotten all down, and I can tell you this week's list is going to continue on that trend. All right, we're continuing with covers though, and we got Captain America #750, the Addie Granoff 1 in 50. We hadn't seen a Granoff for a while. This one was going for 65 to 75, so not even double ratio, not a good sign. And this book did just that. It's now a $15 to $30 book, so not even going for ratio, which is, if it doesn't make double, the odds of it staying even at ratio is not very good. Another dumpster fire already on this list. Next, we have Daredevil 612 from back in 2019. This is Paulo Rivera 1 in 10 variant, Netflix variant of those characters. Basically was hitting the list, was going up big because there was some movement about them bringing him back. News about Daredevil Born Again was coming out, all that kind of stuff. $200 to $300 for this one back then for raw copies. Now a raw copy will cost you $70 to $150. 9.8 only $200 to $250. So 9.8s are on the low end of what raws were going for back then. Definitely a trap here. Borderline, you could argue dumpster fire. Just based on the values, it wasn't quite half, but yeah, it wasn't. It was right around 50% drop, but not quite more than 50%, but definitely a trap / dumpster fire on this one. Next, we have Extreme Venomverse, number 4. The Takashi Okazaki 1 in 25. So there's a lot of buzz about this Venom girl, first manga style Venom girl. This book was going for $130 to $175 back then. In its second week in a row, last week when we talked about it, it was going for $100 when it first came out. By its second week, it was $130 to $175, with averages around $150. Now it's a $50 to $85 book. 9.8, $150 to $200. This is a dumpster fire. I did not understand the way people went in big for this character. There's so many spider characters. The odds of this Venomverse one being anything other than something that shows up in these kind of events was pretty freaking slim, and it's already starting to back up, and I would expect it continues to do so. Next, we have, we're going to move fully into comic buzz, because that Venomverse was kind of a cover and buzz kind of thing. We got Ghost Rider number 90. This was hitting the list. This hard to find final issue. Had a few sales around $100, so that's why they put it on here. But now it's a $20 to $40 book. 9.8 going for $60. Only one sale there, so it's hard to really judge completely what a 9.8 value is. But less than those raw sales at 100 from back then. This one is somewhat hard to find, but it's not that hard to find. And yeah, it's another dumpster fire on our list this week. Next, we have World Tree number 1, the 3rd print. So World Tree was the hot indie comic of the summer last year. A lot of people had a lot of buzz. People were chasing it. This 3rd print was going for $10 to $15 right out the gate. Now it's a $2 to $15 book. 9.8 only costs you $30. We'll call this a down and I'll be back. It's borderline because there are some sales up in the 10 to 15 range, but most of the sales are under $10 here for sure. All right, another sort of buzz-related book. Not sure exactly what was causing this to hit the list. Tom just kind of argued it was because it had gotten low enough that people were starting to buy it again from the drop. Uncanny X-Men number 266. First appearance of Gambit. Yes, I know all about the annual. I think this is still the book that most people chase, though. So if you want to call it first, because it's not really even first full, because he appears, it was supposed to be his first appearance. He appears in the other book completely. So yeah, this is still the book because of the cover that most people chase. Raw copies back then, $260, 9.8, $775. Now it's a $100 to $200 book. 9.8, $6 to $750. So a down and I'll be back. I do think there's a little bit of buzz here, maybe about Channing Tatum again, but yeah, this is definitely a book that is taking a step back from what it was back then. Still a quality book for sure, despite the controversy over whether or not it's actually the first appearance. Next, we have Spider-Man Spider Shadow, number 1. This one was hitting the list because there were some TikTok videos that went viral about this storyline, which is the storyline where Spidey kept the black suit. And people started buying it in big numbers, even though it wasn't going for much. $5 back then, 9.8 only costing $40. And yeah, now it's still a $2 to $10 book raw. So basically a cover price plus shipping kind of thing on eBay. So yeah. Not a big surprise. This didn't really hold any. Sales slowed down. We'll call it a down and I'll be back. I guess you could call it a steady I'll be back. But yeah, this is one that there was no reason to chase for sure. Next, we have Venom 2099, number 1 from 2019. This is the first appearance of the second Venom 2099, Aaliyah Bell. Back then, raw copies were going for $15 to $20, 9.8 going for $100. Raw copies now are going for $5 to $15. This hit the list because right after the Spider-Verse movie, and they were talking about maybe doing some more spin-offs and that kind of stuff, and people were wondering if we might get a Miguel story all on his own in his 2099 universe, and maybe we'd see a Venom, that kind of thing. That's where the spec was. Not the greatest of spec, and yeah, this has definitely turned into a trap, as most of the sales are under $10 here. Definitely down. Next, we have Spider-Man 2099, number 1, the Toy Biz white reprint. This was getting some big sales post-movie. It's a fairly popular, people chased this book pretty hard because it's somewhat hard to find and hard to find in good condition. Even though it's much later, it didn't come out till 2001, or this reprint didn't. So, but back then a 9.6 went for $600, which is kind of what prompted us to hit the list. Now raw copies are $100 to $300, so big value in this book, even raw. 9.6s, they have backed up though some, $350 to $550 as we've moved away from the movie. No real surprise there. All right, getting toward the end of this, a few more books to go. We got Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars number 7, first appearance of Julia Carpenter. And this hit the list back then because we got confirmation that is who Sydney Sweeney was playing in the movie. So that is what prompted this to hit the list back then. Obviously, we've had trailers since then. This book has kind of been up and down over the last several months because as we've gotten more news about the Madam Web movie. Back then, raw copies were going for $20, 9.8 hit $330. Now it's a $5 to $25 book raw with the nicer sales still around $20, $25, but yeah, you can definitely get it for less if you find the right deal. 9.8's $2 to $275, so another down, and I'll be back here despite getting a trailer since then and everything else. And I would guess the book does kind of, if anything, continues to slowly creep down, even before the movie comes out. Next, we have one sort of DC sort of movie book, I guess, but I don't know exactly what was going on here. Tom tried to explain it as they were talking about there's a new animated movie that was kind of in a anime style that had Harley in it, and that's why this hit the list. This is Batman Adventures 12, first appearance of Harley Quinn. Obviously, there was news about that animated movie. There was news about Lady Gaga, so those were the kinds of things. But honestly, this is just a hot book, or just a highly sought-after book, I should say. Back then, Tom did list the average as 1.2K, and obviously because I didn't do a Cash or Trash, and I don't know exactly what the average really was for Raws. Probably pretty close to what it is now. But the only thing that was going for more than 1.2K were 9.8s, so that's just not a good average. But anyway, 9.8s back then were hitting $2,800. Now it's a $150 to $1,000 book, depending on the condition of that raw copy. Obviously, this book has a wide range of conditions because it was a series more collected by younger kids because it was related to the animated series than older collectors. 9.8, $2,000 to $2,400, so another down, and I'll be back. It's backed up a little bit. This is basically where this book pretty much sits all the time, or here recently at least. Next, we have New Avengers number 4, first appearance of Maria Hill. She had returned to Secret Invasion briefly, and yeah, so that's what caused us to hit the list. Raw copies were still only averaging $12, 9.8, $100. Now it's a $5 to $15 book raw, 9.8, $45 to $60, so another down and another I'll be back. And it looks like we probably won't get more Maria Hill, but pretty cheap key for a fairly, a secondary but female character in the Marvel Universe, but still a good one. So next we have Daredevil number 270, first appearance of Blackheart, the son of Mephisto. Yeah, so this was hitting the list because there's rumors that Mephisto is going to be in the Ironheart show, which I don't even know if we're still getting. I think we still are. And that Blackheart might appear and that kind of stuff, which at this point, I wouldn't trust any Mephisto rumors, but whatever. But raw copies back then were going for $30, 9.8 hit $280. Now it's still a $5 to $40 book raw. Most of the sales are more around 20-ish, but there are a few sales still in that $30, $40 range. 9.8 now, $225, $275. So we're still going to call this a down, and I'll be back. Most of the sales have backed up a little bit from the prices back then, but still going close to the same range. And then our final book this week is Hulk number 1, the first cover appearance of Red Hulk. I specify cover because he doesn't actually appear in the comic until issue 2. I believe it's issue 2 on this one. Anyway, but this is the one shot after because of the cover. Raw copies 80, 9.8, 350 because there was a set photo from Captain America 4 that had Harrison Ford, and it looked like his pants were torn, and they're like, oh, he's going to be Red Hulk. So that's why people were chasing this in that moment. Still now, $40 to $80 book raw, 9.8 is $200 to $300. So we have another book that's taken a step back, closer to where it just kind of sits long term. All right, that is this week's list. I want to thank you guys for watching. Obviously, if you haven't been watching any of my live stuff, you see my new background that we're still working on getting finalized, as I have shifted my channel down from the room I used to be in to the basement. So this is going to be the new home for JP's Budget Collecting. Hope you like it. And with that, we will catch you next time. Later.